Hello, and welcome to Metachemistry. This is episode 141, and we're back with another faction takedown. In this series, we take a look at a faction and kind of deconstruct it and to help you better combat them when you find them across the table. And of course, you can kind of reverse engineer some of this advice if you are trying to play said faction, but generally it's from the perspective of how do you combat them. And so, with this episode, we're going to be talking about the Tartary Army Corps, or TAC. But before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank Mo Games, sponsor of Metachemistry. You can find them over at mo-games.com. And as part of their sponsorship, all of our patrons of any paid level get a 10% discount code to that store. And in addition, we raffle off a $40 coupon code each month. So for that one, you just have to be a member of our Discord, hit the Mo Games giveaway roll, and you'll need a valid US shipping address for Mo to send you your stuff to. Because what's better than games? Mo Games. And so for this episode, we have Ian and myself. Ian, I feel like it's been another busy tournament season, and so we haven't really had a chance to catch up on air for a bit. But how have things been with you?
Yeah. It's been all right. It's been real busy. Finally got my basement finished after a little over a year since moving into the new house. And so I've been spending all of my free time moving my ridiculous amounts of stuff out of storage and into the basement. I don't have a problem. It's only 40 plus years of collecting. So, it's fine.
It's just a little bit of stuff.
But it's actually kind of cool getting to see a lot of the stuff and organize it, and then seeing what can I trim down, because there is some stuff that I'm like, I probably don't need to keep this, but most of it's going to stay.
Nice. Yeah, very cool. And you've been getting some games in, which had not been the case since we last talked about it on air.
Yep.
And so how's that been going for you? You've been on TAC this season, as our listeners have dictated with our annual poll.
Yep.
Nice. Well, good stuff.
Yeah. I've been enjoying them a lot, so they've been a lot of fun.
Excellent. And now everyone listening will know your secrets on how to defeat
you. Yes.
Yeah, and for me, it's getting games has been kind of off and on, but we're getting very close to the end of the Training Incident League, the local grow league that I've been running, and it's been going really well. I think we have after drops still 20 people playing, 21, 20, right around there. So that's been a blast. So I'm really excited to see all of the new players that have joined up from that. So that's been a really good time. And of course, I'm back on my OSS, preemptively jumping on for their impending update here in a month-ish at UKGE. So super excited for that. They haven't been redone since they came out in, was it 2016, 2018? Whenever Cold Front came out. With
somewhere around there.
Funnily enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Very exciting stuff. All right. Well, as far as our main topic tonight goes, Tartary Army Corps. You've played them obviously before this season where they were your selected army, and they've had some notable changes since the October update. They got some nice new units in N5 and some changes there that really kind of shake things up fairly significantly. Not a full rework per se, but definitely kind of revitalized from what I saw.
Yes.
And when you think of TAC, Ian, what are some of the initial strengths that immediately come to mind? Like, what do you feel like they're known for or are most good at?
Camouflage. Lots and lots of camo.
Agreed.
You can build out a list that is actually fairly effective and be pushing 20 plus camo markers on the field if you really want to.
Yeah, exactly. And that is part of why I feel like where TAC is kind of the quintessential Ariadna to me. It's the most Ariadna, if that makes sense. Which is part of why it has always like kind of intrigued me, at least somewhat, because it just, I don't know, when factions or sectorials feel kind of like that distilled essence of their parent faction, I don't know what it is, but that really draws me to them. Like, I kind of felt the same way with Neoterra and Pano. Neoterra's been diversified a fair bit at this point, but previously it was they have the most BS and the biggest guns, ish, but capitalizing on top tier firepower, as is the Pano way. And I think that guerrilla tactics, camo everywhere, never knowing exactly what you're running into, is kind of the essence of TAC and Ariadna, in my mind, anyway.
Yes, I would agree.
So with that, obfuscation is definitely a big strength, where it's hard to tell even what all on the board are troopers, because there's a ton of decoys and mines that go along with that camo. And unlike before, I feel like a number of camo markers are much more scary than they used to be. And so previously, where I might be willing to just kind of march through, now that's a lot more dangerous. I would also say they're partially tied to camouflage is how good they are defensively. Like, one, just the nature of camouflage makes you a little bit more difficult to deal with because it takes extra orders to discover, or you have to risk intuitive attacks or things like that. But also that they have quite a bit of mine layer. They have the new, well, not new anymore, but new-ish, relatively speaking, Vistrals and the gunnery fire teams that can make them defensive powerhouses. So I think trying to assail an entrenched TAC position is kind of tricky.
Would agree. They just have a lot of ways to dig in and just be difficult to move. They've pulled some additional camo pieces for that. They've got additional guys with decoy and mine layer and some different options for mines that because normally you see shock mines, but they have access to a lot of paramines and AP mines and even a little bit of EM mines as well. So they have some variety in that respect. So there's quite a lot of area denial that they can do. And then they also have it's not quite Caledonia level, but they do have access to a lot of AP and, more importantly, a lot of T2 for their ammo.
Yeah, like they can hit a fair amount, and scouts play a big role in that for sure. But yeah, any other particular strengths that jump out at you with them?
Goes with camo, lots of mimetism. Because you have most of the stuff that has camo has mimetism. They also have other pieces like the Frontovix and the Vet Cossacks that also have mimetism. Those pieces in particular are also Warhorse, so they are pretty solid at not caring if your lieutenant gets killed or surprise attack or not. It's combat instinct. The Vet Cossack does also have combat instinct, I believe. So that's a another one that is pretty nasty. But yeah, they
BS-3 and stuff like that. Still, yeah,
different things like the Vet Cossack picked up like a special die on dodging, and with most of the Ariadne and heavy infantries also became immunity to immobilized B state. So there's a lot of things that they just don't care about that you could hit them with, and they just ignore it.
for sure. Like they impose Vismods pretty readily. They have good, cheap access to smoke and some pretty reliable smoke. Like if you have a dog warrior throwing in a 14 or 16, Mandinos, I think, are 14 off the top of my head. Maybe they're 13. So
Armadillos are 14th base.
They are 14. Okay. Ariadne. All the fizz. But yeah, and so as far as their weaknesses go, that lends pretty readily into MSV. Hard MSV arrows can be kind of tricky for them to tackle if something like Tussair or a Black Air or something like that. That will require some creative tactics to deal with. And it makes it much harder for them to move around the table. There are options, but it's definitely a much harder time than other non-MSV arrows, typically speaking.
Yeah, as they don't have any access to disco ballers, so you don't have that option at all.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess maybe they do have one disco baller on the war driver. You could take one on the war driver.
Fair.
But
yeah, the war driver is there.
Yeah.
It's
I like the war driver. I
baller.
think it's awesome because it's not that expensive. It's 16 points.
Yeah, but it's also a full
and it's a hacker with
SWC.
0 pain. Yeah. Not that bad though. Also a 6 cents hacker natively.
Yeah. That's nice. I mean, for when they're wandering around all those repeaters you have access to.
Mm-hmm. Cyber mines too.
Yeah. So, yeah, MSV definitely something that can make them struggle a little bit and take away a pretty hefty portion of their advantage. I would also say they're not wildly durable. I think a lot of their units rely on a marker state. No. They do have a few things like the Rotnik or Vet Kazakh, and to a lesser extent, the Vistral Dog Warriors. Yeah, so there's a couple things that are a little tougher, but there's a lot of generally 1 wound troops that are armor 3 or less, and usually less. And so with that, like if they aren't winning those firefights, there's a fair chance they're going down. Barring, again, there are a couple tougher troops, generally speaking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else would you consider weaknesses? What, if you're playing TAC, what else are you worried about? You see something across the table and you're like, oh, well, that's going to make my day harder. Mm-hmm.
A sensor bot, because it's the key to getting around the camo. Especially since they can place so many camo markers down, that having sensor is super key to getting those out of the way. Especially if you can just get several in the area of effect and just make them go away. Things like the Strelok can be placing 3 camo markers because they have the real guy, the decoy, and a mine. So you can just and you take 4 of those, so you can just flood the table with camo markers. Having sensor is really important to negate that advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's huge, and it can save you potentially quite a lot of orders, and they're very reliable. Even a very basic sensor platform like your average Fort Observer bot is passing that on a 19, and they're fast. So you can get a lot of camo out of the way with that. And not to mention other ones that can be even more reliable where they just auto pass. So I suppose those are less common. But someone like Helena Kovac and Tunguska come to mind, or Devas with sensor and Aleph and whatnot.
Yeah. Another thing that they're weak to is shock ammunition. There are 4 profiles that are immune to shock. Which, granted, doesn't sound like a whole lot, but they can take some pretty decent doctors and take multiple doctors in the faction, so that are with a pretty decent whip. So it is very likely that they can be bringing stuff back up. Use shock ammunition, and that's not happening, especially because of the guys that have shock immunity. They're other than the dog warrior, they're all 1 wound guys. So you shock the doctor, they can't bring him back up. You shock those guys, you can't bring him back up. And the guys that have shock immunity are the Barsuk, who are one of the Armor 3 troopers, the veteran Kazakh, and he's 1 wound with no wound in cap, so sort of a second wound. And then there's Pavel, who has 1 wound. Outside of that, shock will just put guys down. I guess the Ratnik will also be shock immune for being 2 wounds.
And the Rems, of course, being sure will be shock immune.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a handful of troopers that it might be worthwhile. Yeah, considering that those 10, most of those are the things with more armor anyway, but all the lighter stuff, might as well be shocking off the table because most of these things are, armor 0 to 2 here.
Yeah.
Any other particular weaknesses that come to mind?
Outside of a very small handful of profiles, they are not super great at close combat. So if you have really good close combat models, you can get in there and do stuff to them. So only 3, I think maybe 3 models have martial arts. Colonel Voronin has martial arts 2, and he's CC of 22. Kazakh Spetsnaz have martial arts 2 with CC of 21. And let's see, martial arts level 3 is just
Pavel.
Pavel. Yep, and he's CC 23. So he's actually the nastiest CC in the faction. So he also has Berserk and martial arts 3 and an APT2 weapon that's PS5. So he's really solid. But that's it. Even the Dog Warrior, as scary as it is CC 21 with no martial arts. So if you can get in CC with most of this stuff and just wreck it if you have any level of decent trooper with martial arts.
For sure. Yeah, like you said, Dog Warriors, even when they transform to CC23, they're mostly just hoping that Immunity Arm ties things up as opposed to winning regularly. I would also give kind of an honorable mention to the Antipode Assault Packs and Carmen. The Assault Pack, just because they can get a bunch of dice, because you can have 2 or 3 of them gang up on a model, and they're disposable. And then Carmen, she has an Antipode that rides with her, or runs with her as she rides her motorcycle, I guess. And she's got CC -6 and Natural Born Warrior.
Yeah, so she's pretty decent.
22.
But,
so, not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, Armandinos are 21. Is it even guys that break 20 are not particularly good.
Yeah, more like attacks of opportunity style pieces as opposed to things you're trying to get into melee.
Yes.
For sure. All right, well, we've kind of danced around it a little bit, but why don't we talk about some of the kind of power pieces of the faction, things you would expect to see regularly, and that, these are the things that come to mind. Like if someone announces they're on TAC, these are some of the things that you will want to mentally prepare for. And I would probably start with the Vistral. The Vistral is a great defensive piece, and it can also join a gunnery team. I believe this is the only place in Ariadna where Vistrals can gain special dice from fire teams. Is that true, Ian?
It may be, because Vistrals are also available in Merovingia, but I don't believe they are linkable in Merovingia. Looks like they are not. So yeah, just here.
Yeah, which is pretty potent because they're part of what makes them just a strong defensive piece. There's a couple factors, but they're relatively durable because they have 2 structure, only 2 armor, but the extra structure is worth far more than extra armor the majority of the time. They have Sapper, which is kind of the big one where it gives you insurance against the table, It lets you deploy in places that normally wouldn't be feasible, because again, Sapper lets you deploy in or enter later in the game. Foxhole State, which gives you 360 cover and M3, and they're a respectable ballistic skill 12. They have SR-1 on their BS attacks and built-in shock if you need it, and are packing either light rocket launchers with an AP sniper rifle or a portable autocannon, and there's a neurosnetic version for both of those, where you can take the non-neurosnetic AP sniper rifle. But they have threatening weapons with long-range bands. In TAC in particular, they can form gunnery teams and can be given a special die for as cheap as 5 points if you just want to tack a tractor mole onto them. Or you could do something similar with, if you want an engineer, you could throw a dozer with them, or a Barsuk, I suppose, something like that. If you just want something small and cheap to give them a special die, so you're throwing 2+1 dice in a row with, either an AP, shock, PS4, sniper rifle, or an autocannon, which is pretty nasty. And they could take 2 of them.
Oh, yeah.
So you could do that in 2 separate places.
Yes.
Now, that's
and I do
expensive.
that in most of my lists.
Yeah, you're probably looking at, depending on what you join with them, because, estimate about 10 points
Usually
each.
dozer.
Yeah, dozer at what, 13? So you're looking at about 40 points per?
45. Because I'm taking the autocannon. I know that the sniper rifle is more points efficient. I totally get that. Yes, it's awesome. It's an AP sniper rifle. But the extra 6 points and full SWC per to get the portable autocannon is worth it to me, because while it is more expensive and probably less efficient and this, that, and the other, the amount of effort that your opponents go to try to avoid or take this thing out because it is so scary, it is a win. It's like, okay, yeah, just go ahead and spend orders on it. I don't care. I'm shooting 3 dice at you. Like, I want you to attack it in your turn. I'm getting more dice.
Right. Yeah.
It's
absolutely
disgusting. And if I land a hit, you're having a bad day almost every time.
Yeah, because you're looking at PS4 AP shock explosive, all of this ammo type packed into the shell.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, I got close to you. Cool. Here's a light rocket launcher. Here's a template or hit mode, depending on, and it burns. And it's PS5 or 6, depending on which mode I'm using.
Sure.
And shock. Yes, the flames are also shock.
Just in case, never can be too sure.
Yeah.
What else would you consider a go-to profile? Something that the vast majority of TAC lists are going to want?
Veteran Kazakhs. This is going to be the primary gunfighting piece. It is the heavy infantry, like the main one. Like, yes, you have the Ratnik is the other one, which is your size 5 super heavy. But the Veteran Kazakh is the one that you're going to see most often because it's the most versatile. So right off the bat, you have a 6'2" move BS 13 model that's whip 14, and it does have a lieutenant profile, 2 of them. So you have a pretty solid lieutenant with a good whip there. Armor 4 and BTS of 3. And then just their standard kit before you even get to weapons is Combat Instinct, so ignoring surprise attack, and Courage, a special die on dodge, immunity to mobilize B, immunity to shock. This one's kind of cool. A couple things in Ariadne picked this up for heavy infantry, but it's normally Fizz 12. It's Fizz 15 for the purposes of healing with a medikit. So they get back up pretty easily on that. Mimetism -3, no wound incapacitation, Sixth Sense, terrain total, and Warhorse. So between Combat Instinct, Sixth Sense, and Warhorse, they're kind of just ignoring so much stuff, and then they're immune to mobilize B and immune to shock. they don't care about a ridiculous amount of things that could be thrown at them. You start off as low as 36 points, and most of these are specialists. You have forward observers and paramedics for the lower points values before you get into the AP HMG and the higher points values. But the basic ones start off as a forward observer with a T2 rifle and a light flamethrower, and has a flash pulse, heavy pistol, and X visor for 36 points. You can have that be your lieutenant. The paramedic drops the flash pulse to pick up the medikit, but otherwise is the same. And he's 38. And then for 45 points, you can have an APHMG and a heavy pistol. No X visor on that, but you don't really need one for an APHMG. And that could be your lieutenant for a half SWC discount, actually.
Sure.
And then they link in with all kinds of stuff. So the Vet Kazakh, they have veteran teams. They have Purity with Frontovix, who are the other guys that have Warhorse. And so they're pretty awesome there. You can put them in with Line Kazakhs, but they don't count as Line Kazakhs. So you generally want to have them in the veteran fire team, where they're going to do awesome stuff. Because Frontovix are like mini Vet Kazakhs.
Yeah, and I think that Frontovix have enough utility that they're probably worth bringing up as well. Mm-hmm. So they have the veteran label to join with Vet Kazakhs, and so they count as each other, so they're very flexible fire teams. You can get a level fire team with a veteran Kazakh, say APHMG, and then likely something like a paramedic Frontovix. Gets you a very powerful duo that can get some work done for sure.
Yeah.
They're not nearly as tough. They're only 2 armor, but they're still Mim 3 and Warhorse, but they're also much cheaper. And something like the paramedic still is packing a T2 rifle at 23 points. Also has several other good utility profiles. Notable ones to me are things like the MSV-1 A Sniper.
Yeah, it's the only MSV in the faction.
Right, yeah, and you can take advantage of that with the smoke. To a lesser degree than other factions.
Is actually one of the ones that I usually take because for 26 points, he's a T2 rifle, Panzerfaust D-Charge, assault pistol specialist with a deactivator. So like he just packs a ton of utility and still can be a threat because of his weapon loadout.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the heavy rocket launcher, which is, like most rocket launchers, cheap in points, but expensive in SWC. It's only 9 points, about 1.5 SWC for that, which I wouldn't necessarily pair the HMG at Kazakh, but you could do some other interesting things with some very cheap defense teams with that. And so they kind of lock into a lot of places. They're kind of the main fire team glue of the faction. They count as line Kazakhs in line Kazakh teams. They count as veterans in veteran teams. They count as Erotniks in mobility teams. Like, almost all of the fire teams that you care about, they're going to have some sort of option for, other than the gunnery teams.
Yes,
but they have super cheap things that they already want anyway. So yeah, I think Frontovix will show up frequently.
Well, and the Frontovix engineer is actually great to throw into a duo with a Ratnik, because the Ratnik is hackable, so you can use them to kind of clear states.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, well, Ratnik does all of the pew-pews. The Frontnik can get objectives done as they move up. So, yeah, I think they're very versatile, and that you'll likely see, I would say probably a couple show up. I would say, 1 to 3 in a list, depending on how fire team heavy it's focused compared to camouflage.
Yeah.
But what about you?
Yeah. I think Frontovix I usually take like 2 in a list. I like to run a Harris with the Vet Kazakh APHMG, and then like the paramedic and the engineer for the frontivics, and just it can get anywhere it needs to go and do whatever I need it to do. So it's
for sure.
yeah, but more than that, it's got to find the balance in the list of taking those kind of more power pieces versus leaning into the defensive tech like the camouflage.
Sure. But yeah, speaking of, I think another profile that you will see very frequently are the scouts.
Yeah.
Scouts are their kind of basic camo infiltrator. Their terrain total, Mim 3, surprise -3. They have BS AP on all their stealth, reasonable BS of 12, and whip 13 with, they have a specialist option in the Forward Observer. Notably, they all have silenced pistols, which are neat when they come up. Like, just having the option to attack BTS can sometimes be very useful.
Yeah.
Which actually probably filters into another weakness of the faction, is that they have very low BTS, which is true of most of Ariadne, but just something to reinforce here.
But yeah, the scouts are also notable for every profile being a APT2.
Yeah. Everything has T2, and they have BSAP, which is a really nasty combination.
Yeah.
The Ohatnik has one of the most forgiving range bands in the game, being a +3 from 8 to 32. It's only burst 2, but with mimetism and cover and potentially surprise attack, like it's threatening to most pieces, like any non-immunity piece really. Doesn't really like the idea of getting hit with an APT2 round. They also have a variety of mines. You can get them with shock or paramines, and then they have probably the most notable profile, other than maybe the Forward Observer in my mind, is the 28-point half SWC Mine Layer 2 with EM mines. So this is up the board, 3 Mim 3 markers, EM mines, nothing. I take that back. Very few things want to get hit by EM mine. And that's just something you have to worry about. And I think that's something that you don't really think much about, or at least I don't. I don't really consider EM mines like part of Ariadne's toolkit by and large. Like, I guess it's solid.
2 profiles that have them.
Right. Like, it's knowledge that I know it's there in my head, but when I picture Ariadne, that's not something I readily bring to mind as part of their tool set. And I wager I'm not the only one in that. I mean, as soon as you get hit by one of those, you definitely start remembering. But yeah, I think scouts are definitely a big part of the TAC game plan. Now, they're slightly on the pricier side mostly in the upper 20s. There are some profiles that are cheaper, but I think most of the profiles you want are going to be in the upper 20s, like 27, 28-ish points.
Yeah. I mean, they do all, other than the sniper, come with decharges as well, so there's added utility there. But yeah.
Notably, never mind, cut that. I was thinking the FO didn't have it for some reason, but it's right there in front of me.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think scouts are a big part of that. They can deploy as many as 3 camo markers in the midfield and kind of add to that network of obfuscation.
I could go with something like the Strelok, but it's a different kind of scout, effectively. Or I could go with something like the Dog Warrior, because it's iconic and that. But actually, I'm going to go with something that's neither of those. And I think this is one that catches a lot of people kind of by surprise sometimes. But the Ermendino, it's a cheap, like, we're talking 8 points, irregular, impetuous engineer with a chain rifle and decharges that gets booty. And you can take 4 of them.
Yeah.
And they're
absolutely
fantastic. Like, they're the non-jumping version of the Yan Yan, effectively.
A little bit. But are specialists. So
yeah, but they're straight engineers. So they're wildly cool, and you take 4 of them. So I've done that where I've taken 4, and you just kind of see what you get and throw them down and have them just go cause havoc. But at the same time, like, they're a specialist, and if they get the 8-4 move on the booty roll, like, they're getting up there with between impetuous and all that. They're just there. So
Sure.
the Armadillos are awesome. You will encounter them, I guess, maybe in, I think you take Vanilla and then Cosmo. That's it. I think Vanilla, Cosmo, and Tartary. Yeah.
Starco can take them, I believe.
Okay. I guess outside of Ariadne, Starco can take them, yeah, which is cool. But yeah, this is, like, I think the only place you can take 4 of them.
Yes,
so you can take 4 in Cosmo. You can take 4 in Cosmo as well. Yeah,
fair enough.
A story for another day. But yeah, no, the Armadillos are they're fantastic. And there's one of those things, like, it's an absolute, like, chaos wild card of you don't know quite what you're going to get, and your opponent doesn't know what you're going to get, and they're either going to do nothing or just be the absolute biggest problem on the board.
For sure. Yeah, and with such a low point of entry, like, it's kind of a why not, other than, managing some irregular orders, but there's not a ton. There are several, but there's not so many. Unless you're, dumping in on Armadillos and Dog Warriors and, things like that. But
sometimes getting an 8-point HMG is just hilarious.
Right.
Or an 8-point guy with, there's so many things, like getting the extra, or the +4 armor, or the Mimetism 6, or, whatever. And you're just like, this guy's going to be a problem, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Why don't we go with one more profile each? Go ahead, Ian. I know what I have in mind for me.
Okay. Well, since we did talk about it, I'm gonna. Nope, not the Dog Warrior. It's actually the Antipode Assault Pack. The Antipode Assault Pack is actually super unique. That only Tartary gets it. I guess it might be in vanilla, but I don't remember. Let me check.
It is, yeah.
Okay, it is, but I think you can only take 2
I think
there.
They're 1.
You can take 2 in vanilla.
They're 2 in TAC also.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, Antipode Assault Packs are amazing. It's the best sensor unit in the entire game. Because the dogs themselves are, and you get have sensor, and then you get 3 of them in a peripheral control unit. So they move up, they do their thing, you get them at 8 inches apart, and you just reveal this just huge band of the board. So if Tartary is playing against somebody that has a lot of camo markers, Antipodes will take care of that really quickly. They're also absolutely disgusting when it comes down to getting into CC, because they have super jump and camouflage. They can get there pretty quickly on a 6/6 move. And they're CC 20, which isn't great, and they don't have anything else going on except for piling in extra attacks from getting multiple of them in at once. And they have AP weapons at PS5, so they can do some damage there. And they can tie things down pretty effectively. But also importantly, the handler has a smoke grenade launcher, so this is another source of smoke in the list. And tactical awareness,
is pretty notable.
Yeah, tactical awareness. So, like, for 26 points, you're bringing 2 regular orders and this huge unit of nasty close combat sensor goodness that super jumps all over the place.
1 in a tactical, though the Antipodes will surely be happy to use that tactical order at the very least.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, I think for me, I want to say Dog Warriors, and they'll definitely be an honorable mention because I think you'll see those frequently. But I think another piece that you kind of have to worry about is the Tank Hunter. The Tank Hunter is a camo 3 piece. It's in the DZ, barring 1 profile. They have a mine layer with forward deployment 8 inches with AP mines. All of their profiles come with AP mines. They have a good offensive gunner with an AP HMG. They have a really good defensive gunner, but also can kind of do offense fine with a portable autocannon with an extra special die tacked on.
Oh yeah.
So you're throwing 2+1 dice active or 1+1 defensive. And that's kind of what I mean when you sort of have to be careful around camo. Like, you can't just walk through all of them, because if you're not careful, a valuable piece is going to eat an AP explosive round from something as you're crossing, and that's a bad time. They got bumped up to BS13. I don't remember if it was the turn of the edition or the October update, but one of the two. I know they were BS12 before. They're 13 now. And so they're pretty nasty. And
missile launcher profile as well. Like, Combined Army and Shazvasti got the Noctifer. TAC has tank hunters.
Yeah, since you know where it's at, I feel like, well, it is a fair points hike. It's 8 extra points to go from the missile launcher to the autocannon, but I feel like the autocannons are so threatening. I mean, it doesn't have a template, but the extra likelihood of winning the face-to-face feels more valuable to me. But
just getting the special die on the arrow is super important. It just makes it that much more gross.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are a lot of kind of the main pieces you'll see. They do have other solid pieces that will show up, like Dog Warriors, Strelocks, Dynamos, Spetsnaz. Like, good things are definitely worth keeping in mind. But those are some of the things that kind of jump out to us as some of the most common things.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the part where we talk about the surprises to be aware of. And this one is kind of a tricky one, because in TAC, they don't have hidden deployment, they don't have impersonation, they don't have hollow match, hollow echoes, or things like that. But just the sheer volume of camouflage can make that kind of tricky. So we'll knock out the easy one first, and that is that they do airborne deployment in the form of Spetsnaz, which do have a parachutist option. So it can be kind of difficult to see what's off the board, but during, if you can tell during order count, then, if there are things missing, there's enough cheap things in TAC that it's not difficult to hit a full 15 orders by any stretch. And so if you see missing orders, there's a reasonable chance that there's a Spetsnaz, because that's the only off-the-table option that they have.
Yeah.
And Spetsnaz are kind of notable there. BS Shock, Marksmanship, MIM3, Stealth, BS12, and the parachutists have Decoy with either +1 burst boarding shotgun or +1 burst APS&G, and they have grenades and decharges. And then they have camo profiles. And a silenced pistol, yeah. Then they're pretty solid. Like, those are things that are definitely scary enough if they get in their good range, combining with their mods plus them ignoring mods.
Yeah.
And
the boarding shotgun's my favorite. That's the one that I wreck people's face with constantly.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Burst 3, looking at, non-mimetic, non-albedo targets on 18s is pretty great.
Yeah. And what's also awesome is because of the marksmanship, even against targets that are farther away, if I'm not taking the cover penalty, like, yeah, I'll shoot somebody in the 0 range or even at the -3 range and just be like, cool, I don't care because I have marksmanship. I'm still hitting on like 9s.
Sure. Yeah. That's not terrible.
Yeah.
If you can fight something that's also not at good range and then you have cover and mimetism to fall back on. Not ideal, but you can get some reasonable fights still.
Oh, yeah.
And then I would say it's worth going over their lieutenant options, and then we'll tackle camo last. So with lieutenants, I would say Colonel Veronin is kind of the dedicated command unit profile.
Yes.
He's whip 14, and he brings an extra command token and Strategos level 1. So if the Strategos is in effect. Yeah, and counterintelligence, which is notable too. Like, that's definitely quite nice. So that is kind of the dedicated command piece. So if there is Strategos, which you'll know by the extra reserve and whatnot, then it's Veronin, and he's on a whip 14.
Or 5 command tokens, because that's the only way to get that either.
For sure. Yeah. And then as far as other whip 14 options, if there's not the extra command token or Strategos, that leaves you with Vasily and the Vet Kazak.
Yep.
So those two are going to be your other options. And then they've got several whip 13 options in the form of the Frontoviks, Line Kazakhs, Tank Hunters, and Scouts. If it is not Veronin, it is kind of tricky to hunt lieutenants for attack because a number of them can be in camo. They do have chain of command, and they do have chain of command under camo markers, both from Vasily and from a tank hunter profile.
Yes.
So that may not necessarily be the most useful. If you're trying to dive to kill a lieutenant, there's a moderate chance they'll be hidden chain of command. Also, they're not cheap, or not terribly cheap, but something to keep in mind. And so, lastly, the kind of big one, camo. This, I think, would be best broken down by where they can deploy. So I'll start furthest out and kind of we'll work our way towards the deployment zone. And so this will be a little bit of a lightning round so they don't eat up too much time with the variety of camo that TAC has available.
All of it.
So many. So they're all M3 except for a couple, which I will point out. But for infiltrating, anything more than 8 inches past the deployment zone, basically, is going to be scouts, and they can have mines. The mine layer profile is the one with mine layer 2, so they will generally come in 3s because you usually want to use the extra mine, but you don't have to. Conductors, but they're MIM 0, so you'll know that they're not a scout or a mine. Then with forward deployment, everything is forward deployment 8. So if it's beyond the deployment zone, but no more than 8 inches, and it could be any of these or the infiltrators. You have Strelocks, which come with either a mine or a decoy.
No.
Or mine and decoy.
They always have decoy.
There we go. That's what it was. Yeah, they all have decoy. Some have mine layer, and there's also an antipode profile, which that one's obvious because there's a 40 millimeter camo marker there. So you have Strelocks, and they're generally putting down at least 2 and oftentimes 3 camo markers apiece. You have the Tank Hunter mine layer profile specifically, which is FD8 with a mine. Then you have the Beast Hunter with forward deployment. You have Pavel McManus with forward deployment. And then as far as things that will only be bound to the DZ and must be there, you have your non-mine layer Tank Hunter profile. You have the Barsuk with their decoy, but
there is a lieutenant mine layer Tank Hunter though, and a regular mine layer.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, they fair. Could still have. They have 3 profiles in the deployment zone that also have mine layer for Tank Hunters.
For sure. Yep, good call. You have the Spetsnaz, which can have a decoy. Vasily, which has 2 decoys. The Antipode Assault Pack, you have 3 40 mil markers. Again, those are very easy to spot. And then if there's a Kruger, they have mine layer, and so there can easily be another camo marker near them. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of leeway. At least you can kind of check around deployment, when you're first looking at the table and your attack opponent has finished placing. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of information in terms of what can be out there, at least. Now, again, anything that deploys further up can always deploy further back, but not vice versa. So there's some extra obfuscation that can be had there. So I would not burn tons of time trying to identify these things during a game, but at a quick glance, those might be some things that are helpful to you.
Yes.
So with that, we're basically at a point to kind of talk about any other strategies of dealing with attack.
So yeah, when dealing with tech, especially with like the camo, it's important to have a plan to deal with the camo. And if that plan is not sensor, your best plan is to ignore the camo and just try to do the mission. Especially because there are so many options for them to take that are decoy or mines that you can just freely move around and they can't do anything with. And yes, you might get caught out here and there by something, but the entire point of placing that much camo is to force the opponent to waste orders trying to deal with it. So oftentimes, unless there's a camo marker in a very particularly disadvantageous position near an objective that you have to go to, just try to ignore a lot of it unless you have sensor or some kind of guaranteed way to deal with it, because it's just there to waste your orders and prevent you from doing the mission. So that's the biggest one.
MSV3.
Yeah, MSV3, but or
Those are rare.
MSV2 with Discover Shoot, like things like that. But like again, you're still spending orders to deal with it, which is still generally a win for the TAC player, because oh no, you spent an order Discover shooting nothing because it was a decoy. So saying like
For sure.
honestly, like most of the time it's like the dealing with the Noctifer problem. Like you suspect there's a Noctifer, you don't know where it is, so instead of just like wasting your entire game worrying about the Noctifer, just go do the objectives and be aware that like yes, this camo marker might turn into something and have a plan to kind of deal with it if it does, but I have played games where my opponents have spent entire order pools prone moving, cautious moving, dancing around camo markers that literally ended up being a decoy. And that was the entire purpose of it, was to make them waste their orders. So don't fall into that trap.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say with that's almost a kind of hidden strength of TAC, is that players that are prone to that kind of analysis paralysis of always kind of second guessing decisions and being unsure of how to proceed and that aren't quickly coming to a conclusion, I think TAC heavily preys on that instinct. And so if you were playing very cautiously, TAC is going to feel kind of nightmarish, because if you're taking extra time to make decisions normally, you have most of the information available to you. And then when you have no idea or very limited idea of what's there, then that can be catastrophic to your game, and that can end up eating tons of time if you're not careful. So definitely be mindful of that when you're playing against TAC, is that in general, you want to make decisions faster where you can, but I think this kind of pushes cautious players to be even more cautious. And so just trying to be introspective on that note. And just trying to, I almost want to say throw caution to the wind, which is not exactly the case, but perhaps being a little bit more assertive in play will help.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like, with all those camo markers, I guess it's there for make you waste orders. It's also there to as defensively, so that you can't attack the camo marker unless you go through steps. So it makes the attack pieces more survivable, and because a lot of them are very fragile, that is how they do it. And you're gonna run into situations where you do kind of fall into the trap, and so maybe have a plan. Like, what am I going to do if that camo marker turns out to be the tank hunter with a missile launcher and my fire team's in its sights? Like, have a plan. That's kind of what it comes down to. It's like with anything, like have a plan to deal with what it could be but don't let what it could be hold you back from doing the mission.
Absolutely. And just crit.
Yeah,
Well,
just roll crits.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
Crits fix everything.
Exactly. Well, I think that puts us in a spot where we're just about ready to transition to final thoughts. But before we do, I just want to give a big thank you to our patrons. You really help keep the show running. We're trying to expand on our offerings here at the show and do more and interesting things. In fact, we'll have a new segment that by the time this airs should already be out, our Satlock segments that are available on YouTube and should be available on Spotify as video podcasts as well, where we meet up with tournament organizers and talk about their events and why you should go check them out. So if you're interested in contributing directly to support those kinds of extra endeavors and extra content, you can find us over at patreon.com/metachemistry. And in return, we try and give some benefits to show our gratitude there, such as early access to episodes. We have exclusive channels on our Discord server, final voting on polls, and things like that. And everything that you provide is funneled back into the show. And we don't pay ourselves anything for this kind of stuff. It's all to make the show better because, hopefully you enjoy it, and we'd love to make it even better, so you continue to do so. And as far as our Discord server goes, you can find that in the show notes as always. That is freely available for anyone, barring a couple of those special channels like I mentioned before. But if you want another place to chat more Infinity, please come by, say hi, let us know what you think of this episode. How do you deal with TAC? Have you played TAC? Do you play TAC? And, are there things that we missed? Things like that. So, that said, Ian, final thoughts on taking down TAC?
Well, I think that TAC got a super awesome update. They really kind of come into their own as a faction in N5 with that. They are mean. They have a lot of options and a lot of ways to leverage those, especially around the camo markers and T2 and things like that. So it's just, keeping a cool head and kind of thinking methodically through your actions and deciding what is important. Is it important to engage with that camo marker, or is it important to ignore it and go for the objective? Taking the right tools like sensor and honestly, we didn't even talk about it, but like taking template weapons with intuitive attack can help deal with the camo markers. So like there's a fun option there too. Mm-hmm. But like
sure,
there's so many ways to like kind of pick them apart. But you just got to kind of focus on it and not get overwhelmed with there's 25 camo markers staring at you.
Yeah, exactly. I would also say that smoke is a really, really big help against TAC. As we mentioned earlier, the Frontovic is the only MSV profile, and it's MSV1, which of course means that you won't be face-to-facing if you're throwing smoke, but it makes it harder for them to fight you. And just any sort of vision control, TAC has very limited responses to that, and most of their threatening things, some are going to be mines, which won't care, but otherwise, those hidden big guns or less hidden, like the Vistrals or what have you, if you're just throwing smoke in the way and getting objectives done, then it doesn't really matter what's under that camo marker so much. So sometimes it's about not taking the fights where you don't have to.
Yep.
But yeah, we'd love to hear more about your stories in fighting TAC, particularly since their update, and let us know if we missed anything. There's other things that you think would be good advice to playing against the Tartary Army Corps.
All right, and then before we end the show, I just want to give a shout out to the Colorado Krug coming up October 1st through 4th here in Denver, Colorado. Registrations are live right now, and it is the oldest Infinity tournament in the world, predating even the Interplanetario, and it's shaping up to be the biggest Infinity tournament, with 150 plus players looking like we're going to get scheduled to play. So if anyone's interested in coming out to Colorado to play in the Krug, October 1st through 4th, hit up the Colorado Krug website and register now.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll be unlocking extra swag and other goodies as we get more signups for that event. And as a side benefit, we'll both be there, I think. So it'll be a chance to see us. So
Yeah.
we'd love to have you come out and say hi.
Yeah, it's a blast of a time. It's honestly like one of the best events out there.
Yeah, I always enjoy it. And last year was really, really good. So I'm expecting great things this year as well. And hopefully we see you at the Krug as well. And on behalf of Metachemistry, this has been Devin
And Ian, and that's the meta.